Welcome to Get to the Good Part, Part 2 of Chapter 9, when we left off. This chapter gave Ryan post-traumatic teen flashbacks, Audrey reflects on the fashion sense of Artemis, and John suffers Chris's bad Connery impressions. Now that we are caught up, let's get back to the good part.
We're trying to kind of figure out, or at least Artemis is trying to figure out what the fuck has happened in the past few hours before she got there. She's not really sure at this point in the chapter whether or not Wade has faced Serac or beaten him. And Wade is doing the best that he can to kind of hide the fact that he has. And he's doing, I gotta say, like, and again, hindsight is 20/20, and having read the book, but also seen him kind of move through the challenge, like, it's pretty obvious that he's bullshitting his way through this scenario. And I don't know how she didn't pick up on it.
Yeah, she's like, hello, I'm waiting. Like, he's just standing there for several minutes. Like, or I at least imagine like 40 seconds of nothing, and then he finally responds to her. Did you notice that? It was like, hello, aren't you gonna respond? And then she's like, okay with his response.
But outside of that, even like you and I had kind of talked about this a little bit earlier today, is like he has a very, like, if like, imagine outside of the book, like, we've got a lot of background on him, excuse me, but if the only background you had was the conversation between the two of them up to this point in the chapter, you would be like, this is the most vapid, boring motherfucker I have ever talked to. Because he's just giving her no answers. Like, he's giving her nothing in the conversation. He's just being very, like, very dodgy and dismissive. Like, he's holding not really his cards saying much. Close. He's like saying, like, yeah, I like your shit, but I don't really have a whole lot to say.
Well, he's holding his cards close. I mean, first off, he's in a shit position, which is he's just having come away from beating a Serac, but from her perspective, he's having come away from losing to Serac, which means he had to run for his fucking life because of the shit he's wearing.
Right.
There's no way. Like he has, his lie is becoming less and less believable. It's, you know, it's kind of like Yoda playing stupid, you know, until you realize that he actually was like a fucking kick-ass Jedi, and you're like, holy shit, he was really just fucking with him.
Where it's like, yeah, he's close. Don't worry, just wait. Eat this fucking soup that I made.
So, I mean, in that perspective, he's really trying to hide his cards.
Yeah. And I get that. I just, like, and again, it's hard for me to separate between, like, you know, what he's putting out there and what she's picking up. I think that's the theme of this chapter, is trying to feel out, you know, what he's offering or what she's offering, and what he's picking up or what she's picking up. It's a dialogue between two characters who don't really know their stake in this one very particular and fucking specific thing that nobody else in the world could understand but the two of them, because they're there. You know what I mean? And it's hard to tell where each of them are in the conversation. It kind of shifts throughout the chapter. But in this particular part, when they're, you know, finally starting to get to the meat of the conversation, like, the very beginning is about, like, you know, hey, I'm a fan of yours. Hey, I really like what you're doing. And, you know, hey, how did you get here? You're fucking, you know, she knows he's nothing, like, from the beginning. Then you get to this point in the conversation where it's like, you know, it's like two people, and you know one of them's bullshitting and the other one's not, and you start to kind of lean into, so what happened when you faced a Serac? A Serac? Who's that?
Well, she's bullshitting
too. That's the Demi-Lich that you must have faced if you were still here.
She's bullshitting too, though, because she says, well, I've been coming here for 3 weeks. And then she gets upset, and then she says, well, I've been coming here for 5 weeks. And
she's
blah,
exaggerating.
blah.
But her bullshit's a little bit different from his.
Right. He's like, oh, well, I guess I'll come back tomorrow and try to face him.
Well,
right.
To be honest,
I understand
at this point in the chapter, there's really no bullshit because they haven't really broached the subject yet. Like, this is the very introduction. This part of the chapter is the very introduction to the subject. Like, hey, you know, there's a Sararak. How did you face him? And I feel like it's brought up from her angle to say, so
what the fuck?
None of this makes sense.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you,
she does, but she's being polite, kind of.
Well,
like,
they're both keeping their cards close to their vest, but still trying to feel the other one out.
Yeah, you're feeling the other one out. That's the thing. Like,
and I feel like the respect that the Gunters have between each other kind of fast forward that conversation.
I get that.
If I meet someone in a bar, then I'm gonna be polite to them. If I'm playing fucking, I don't play a sport, so I can't really bring a relation point in there. But if I'm competing against somebody, right, and they're on the same level as me, and we're, you know,
but it's different because they're competing against each other, but they appreciate what each other does. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like I'm here to defeat you. It's more of we're here together to discover the truth.
But they're not. That defies their entire reason for being there by themselves. They're not in a clan.
No, it's an honor amongst thieves.
How do you mean?
Yeah, thieves.
I mean, I feel like they're both of the same vein, but yet there's like a code in which we're not going to help each other out, but we're going to be honest with each other at the same time. You know what I mean? Okay.
Well, I don't think she has the same.
Somebody responded.
I don't think she has the same level of honor that we've been talking about between him and H, because right off the bat she goes, "Hey, have you got any tips? Hey, let's work together. Hey, why don't we like I'll go in and you'll go in, or maybe we should go in and play together at the same time." Like, she's looking for an angle to do a little co-op, to do a little, like two artists get together to collaborate.
But at first, he's like, "Oh, I lost," but she's not believing him.
Well, I think like the bullshit, she starts to call him on that, and then he has to backfill.
Yeah.
Because she does assume
it's like, I had to fight him, and I had a bunch of HP points, and then she's like, well, you're level 10.
She's like, you must be really hurt, so let me give you a hand. But there's no way for her to fucking know. She thinks she's
like, let me heal you, sincere, and then maybe like let's face him together to see what's different. Because I've been facing him for 5 weeks, and it's the same thing.
So did you feel like that was sympathetic, or that was like
I think
teasing,
that was honest.
Like, hey, you're bullshitting me and you're not being forthcoming?
I think she's being honest, and he's bullshitting.
Yeah.
Like, she was being sincere, and then she'd become like, wait a second.
Around. Huh? I felt like she could detect that he was bullshitting.
I feel like he's bullshitting the entire time, and she's seeing through most of the BS.
Well, I don't think like she's suspicious. Like, he gives an answer, she's like, okay.
No, not
and then a moment later, he says something that's not quite right.
No, wait. That doesn't make sense.
Again,
because
like, here's the thing.
How did you take a Sararak down if you're level 10?
I feel
that
like
doesn't make any sense.
You're underplaying her intellect here, because she figured this out before he fucking did. So she's clearly thinking on the same wavelength as him. So I feel like she's sussing him out this entire chapter.
That's the one thing that made me somewhat suspicious about her, as I don't know if character is the right word to say, but she's been here for 5 weeks, and she's said that she's been practicing joust for 5 weeks. But like,
if he can play his cards close to the vest, so can she.
Yeah.
And I feel like
I feel like they're both doing
it. Fucking chapter.
They're both doing it.
The only time she's really catching him is when he's being a dick. Like, so when he's standing there and she's saying, look, lucky for you, you got away. And he's like, oh, I got hit points galore. And she's like, oh, really? Because you look like a level 10 wussazoid.
And you're using the fucking armor and sword that
found
you
on the ground.
picked up here.
So when he's kind of being a jackass, she's jackassing right back at him.
Yeah.
But at some point, she has to realize he got away.
If anything, she was the vulnerable one. You know what I mean? Like, she put herself out there a little bit, and he lied to her. You know what I mean? So I totally understand her response.
Yeah.
Like, getting angry and just being pissed. Like, yeah.
So
she's like, hey, you're Gunter. I want a friend.
From her perspective, like, she's still being pretty honest with him for the most part.
So you felt like she was
I found this a while ago. I've been trying to beat him at Joust. Like, I've been coming here for a while. Like, and he's just like, oh yeah, I lost. I guess I'll come back tomorrow.
But again,
so you felt
he has more to gain from this
so
whole
you felt
thing.
like you felt like she was being entirely sincere.
Yeah.
From the get-go.
I don't think she was being entirely sincere, but I think she was being more honest than he was.
Her motives are always clear to me. It's always about, the hunt. And with him, it's somewhat about romance and, being interested in her.
Yeah,
and all this
I don't know.
She's only interested in the hunt so far.
Right. I don't know past this chapter, but I think you do get a grasp of like we've said, like the honor amongst thieves, but like the unspoken code of Gunters.
Well, I feel like what Audrey's talking about more here is like the yes and of dealing with guys. Like, and that's what she's dealing with. Where it's like, yes, I'm all about the hunt, and then the guy comes in and is like, yeah, I'm all about the hunt too. And
No, but I think that's where I think that's where
wrong?
I think that's where they kind of get each other on a different level, but I feel like in the Oasis itself, like the whole goal, like this is a huge deal. These are the only two characters that we know have discovered this area.
Right.
And despite whether or not they're opposite sex or not, there's a respect on a level of Gunter.
Well, no, she all out says it. She says, I want you to know that I respect you. I acknowledge your skills. And then she goes into apologizing for the trash talking. Mm-hmm. There's a mea culpa that breaks into them being real with each other. The difference is that when she reaches that level of being real, he's still lying.
Yeah.
He's still won.
He lies from the beginning of this chapter to the end of this chapter.
Yeah, right up until she calls him out, until she finds out.
And not to mention the things that he observes about her. And this is one thing that stood out to me in rereading this chapter, is that everything that he observes about her, almost 100% is superficial.
Yeah. Think if you didn't have his inner monologue, he'd come off as a creep. Like, what if you had her inner monologue and not his? You'd be like, I don't trust this guy at all.
Well,
he'd just be some guy in the hunt.
Even his inner monologue, if you think about it, like it's working for me. And then the whole thing, where she puts her sword back in a figure 8 fashion, super smooth. Like everything that he says, it's like you're not really you're recognizing her. Like there's 2 levels you recognize her on. One for her success, and that's confirmed by other people. And then the second for the very superficial movements that she's making, which are almost tied to how you're attracted to her.
It just reminds
which
me
are
of
completely
fandom,
separated from her skills and why she got here. And I feel like that's one thing he doesn't address, and it really bothered me when I read back through it, because it's like I read through it the first time so effortlessly without noticing it, and then when I read back through it, I'm like, fucking shit. Like that's almost like a gender predisposition, where it's like if you read through the chapter, at no point does he really fully address her skill. Everything he addresses is a completely almost superficial. I mean, am I wrong? I might be going.
Well, I mean, in the Oasis, it's all superficial because it's not real.
Sure.
All right.
Fair.
But to Chris's point, he lies throughout the entire chapter.
Sure.
I mean, he has to. She's still playing the game.
Right. She's still playing the game, and then over the chapter, she divulges more and more information about herself. Now, some of that is due to her frustration with the Tomb of Horrors itself, but she becomes more and more honest, I feel, through this chapter than he does. Because I feel like he's just trying to hide as much as he can.
Well, he's used to doing that.
Right.
I don't know about
this
the honor
chapter,
amongst
I feel like
Gunters bit.
she's the more honest character than he is. And if you were to read this from her perspective, it'd be really interesting.
Yep. But again...
Yeah, if I was her, I'd feel betrayed because here she's kind of let down her guard to
Audrey,
be herself.
Hold on.
He has
Audrey,
not.
Oh, no, Chris is making a good point. The same one I was going to make. Basically, he's got more to lose. This is all he has, and we don't know her background. We understand his, and this is everything for him. So I get why he's lying and all that.
And it sounds like his angle's different than hers because when we talk about, what him and H have as independence is very different than the rest of the Gunters because Gunters across the board are in clans. They're working together. They're spreading their knowledge. They, from a mutual respect between H and Parsifal is a very different perspective, which is I'm going to get there on my own. I'm going to be the best because I'm going to know everything. And that's better than anyone else. It's a level of like self-righteous geekdom. And she doesn't have that perspective. She comes right in and says, well, hey, let's take turns. Let's work together. Give me some tips. And he's that's not his world. She
doesn't want help, though, at the same time.
She asks for it.
But she's like, let's see what happens. If we both encounter a Sarek together.
Exactly.
Let's see what happens. I've been at this for 5 weeks, and I haven't been able to beat him. But if we both confront him, what happens?
That's a good point.
Let's see. Let's
crack this. Yeah, let's crack this code together instead of I need help. It was more of like, let's just see what happens. Then I can't do this on my own. Because I feel like she still has the strength, the inner strength to go at this by herself.
And when he basically says, I work alone, she goes into, well, let's just see what happens when there's two of us in here.
Yeah.
Let's just see what happens. I mean, like I'm not saying that like it's a deceitful thing. I mean, it's the right thing to do if you're her.
Yeah.
It's like, let's keep you around.
I feel like for her personal feelings towards him throughout the conversation sort of impede.
I don't think she has any. That's the thing.
No, but I think she does. Really?
Why? Why would she?
Because
what motive does she have to have personal feelings?
She doesn't ask for help, but she's like, hey, you're here too. Let's see what happens. Let's see what happens if we both go at him. Because I've been going at it for... I told you 3 weeks. I said 3 weeks, but now that I'm ranting, I'm going to say 5 weeks.
That does make a big point. Like, I did not think of it that way, but I think you're opening my eyes a little bit to what she was trying to do. She's doing it in a polite way, in a friendly way, but I was taking it as her being like, don't leave, which is part of it, but she's also trying to learn. So I do get that, and that's obviously what she's doing.
Yeah,
anybody playing a game would do the same thing.
They're both on the fence in a different way. He's more emotional, and she's more like game oriented in that way, which is kind of cool.
Now, there's another thing to keep in mind is that they're both obsessed. They're both, as far as she knows, on the precipice of getting the first key. No one's done it, and she's been at it for 10 weeks.
5.
Whatever.
5 weeks.
5.
Don't get into details. Come on.
Go
4.
Say 5 weeks. It'll make editing easier.
He doesn't even know.
She is
2
desperate.
2
weeks.
Fuck. She is desperate to move forward.
Yes.
And this
desperation is that it
is the key potentially to moving forward. Here is someone that, with their combined efforts, they could potentially get past it. And for her, using another person, maybe even coercing this person to give her a hand, not beyond her.
It
wouldn't be beyond me.
We don't know her exact motive, and we've discussed this in previous episodes. I don't know if when you get to a point in a video game where it's just like it seems impossible to beat, and you just keep trying and trying and trying on this point, like imagining and then rage quitting. Yeah, but I'm imagining somebody else like you encountering somebody else in that instance, like, hey, what did you do? But don't tell me how to beat it.
Right. I want to move off of this point, but I do want to bring up one thing. I think it's important. It's important to me, anyways, that we, to call her desperate, I think is a bit of a reach.
She's beating her face because she can't beat it. She's literally pounding on her head with her haptic glove.
Obsessed.
Well, they're all
she can't
obsessed,
sleep. Her grades are going to shit. She hasn't eaten. She's obsessed.
Yeah.
She'll do anything.
But they're all obsessed at this point.
I quote, "Come on, hold up a sec," she said, her voice softened. "Please?"
Yeah. She does kind of beg towards the end, like, hey, come on, can you just help? Can you just face him with me?
Please. Also, I'm pretty.
Let me bat my eyelashes.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean,
but she knows
she gets more desperate than he does, which shows
she's frustrated,
more humility than he does.
Maybe desperate's a bad word. Maybe very deeply frustrated.
It's desperate.
I feel like it's unfair to call her desperate. And here's the reason.
Go ahead.
She fucking got there first. She was the first one to find the fucking key.
It's
and
still
nobody's bringing that up
though.
For some reason.
She's been the first one for 20 weeks now.
So to her, she doesn't know that he's beat a Sararak yet. She does not know that. So at this point, there's no incentive for her to act that way because she assumes that he has been beaten. And she assumes that if you've reached this level around the same time as me, you're going to have about the same time as I did. She's assuming that, which she points out when she says, and this is a good segue into the next part, you beat him on the first fucking try? Yeah. She is astounded by this fact. She cannot believe it. Why? Because at this point in the chapter, she assumes he is a peer. That's why she lets her guard down. She lets her guard down because she assumes that he is on the same level.
Or beneath her.
Or beneath. Right, exactly.
Same or beneath, yeah.
The same or beneath.
She's not threatened by him.
Yeah, never at any point is trying to, throw herself on the fucking rails like, I need your help. She's looking at it as like a fucking battle buddy. Like, dude, I can't figure this shit out.
Honestly,
what are
it's
you
kind
doing?
of
what would you do?
I don't know what you guys thought about this point when they were first questioning the PvP point, because neither one of them knew, is this a PvP zone or not? And she pulls her sword, and does a swirl and attacks.
Yeah, not cool. Agreed.
Yeah, and then he defends himself, which they don't. They
Poorly.
don't. But they don't. In fact,
I imagine if
just like oh no.
I would have done the same thing.
It was more of a wince than a fucking defense.
But they don't hit each other, so they obviously it's in a non-PvP zone.
Yeah.
But did she know that, or because she seemed really confident about well, let's find out, and he's like, oh fuck, this better. I don't know what's gonna happen.
I don't even know that came from pride. To me, it came from I honestly think that it was, after the first couple minutes of them being together, she kind of let her guard down. And I don't think she let her guard down because she thought, well, this guy's not a threat to me. I think she let her guard down because it's almost like we're on the same wavelength.
Yeah. Do you think her sword strike was offensive or just let's see what happens in this realm?
Here's the thing. Now, this is really interesting.
Here's the thing. Sorry, that's your trademark.
It is what it is.
Here's the thing. At the same time he's thinking it, she does it.
Yeah.
That's the author communicating to you that they're on the same fucking wavelength. They're thinking the same things at the same time. Now, see, I think on, a periphery read, you'd be like, oh, well, that's love, and they're just connecting with each other. But I don't think that's what it is. I think that
I don't know if he would do that to her, even if she had the key. You know what I mean?
The more I read this, the more it feels like he's disposable.
He is.
And then he's not. And then she catches him on some shit. And then she tries potentially to kind of get him over. There's plenty of psychological
Let's learn
studies
together. I'll let
where
you pass.
you emulate what you want another person to do. Letting your guard down disarms someone else. Saying I'm sorry gets them to disengage.
Right.
And she doesn't seem to get real and put all that bullshit aside until she finds out he's lying. And then it's we are equals.
Go ahead, Audrey.
Yeah. Well, no. Good point. I mean, he was disposable though. That whole act of like, oh, I will easily sacrifice you. Like I would have done that in a heartbeat. I really would have done that if it meant me getting.
He'd be a dead man.
Yeah,
in a heartbeat.
I don't care. Yeah,
but
I get it. But again, that opens the door for war. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and then she's trying to like reel him back in. Like, oh, maybe I can use you.
Yeah.
Now.
There's a lot of flirting on her part to get him to open up and to break down. The turning the head, the smiling.
But is it flirting that has no you said flirting, right?
I said I don't think it's flirting.
Okay, you just said it was flirting though.
I'm changing my mind.
She was. Oh, okay.
I'm
changing
actually,
your mind.
I'm kind of coming back around to thinking that she is a much more clever manipulator.
I was trying to comment on
chapter.
your comment of her flirting, but then you changed your mind.
Okay, if that's what we're
while
calling
I
it,
was
flirting,
combating that.
Okay,
I appreciate that.
Another
No, it's
tweet went
okay.
out.
If you don't think that she's flirting, then that's fine. If
I think
just
she's
playing
trying to
her
manipulate.
role, then okay.
She can't kill him. She can use him. And how can she use him? By getting him to disarm himself and to make himself useful
which she
purpose.
realizes that she can't defeat him or take him down within the first page or two of this chapter. So a lot of the rest of this chapter is her manipulating him to serve her purpose.
Trying to convince him to.
Yeah, which is help me figure out how I can get the key.
Yeah.
And then she realizes at the end, or towards the end, which I'm sure Ryan's been dying to get at since, I don't know, fucking
initially
hour
I was
ago.
thinking that he was
like,
the
she's
asshole
like,
for lying.
Wait, whoa, hold on. And then blank stare. Blank stare. Wait a second.
And then the opposite
what
direction.
the fuck is this bullshit? You're on the fucking scoreboard.
Yeah,
like,
then it really...
That's the moment that, like, oh,
everything,
fuck.
Shit gets real on both sides.
You're right.
You know, that's when they both get really honest. She stops trying to convince him to help her. It didn't work.
And then she's just trying to slow him down.
Well, this is like any relationship between two people or any interaction you have with people. Like you lift the fucking veil on the bullshit, and guess what happens?
Yeah.
You get the real version of two people, right?
Yeah.
And that's what you deal with.
Yeah.
And it requires lying about killing a Sarac. I know.
And what happens? Like, she becomes super fucking aggressive.
She does.
And he becomes very fucking callow.
And this is a lesson, because if you were to tell the truth, then you would cut an entire chapter from a book.
But I mean, they do exchange cards, and they don't like uncover each other to become enemies.
No,
not necessarily.
I love the back and forth between the two.
I think when she becomes real, that's when she breaks down and basically says, "I've been doing this for 30 weeks."
Yeah.
And you realize that all of this
5 weeks,
all this buildup has all of this flirting and eye and cocking the head, and smiling and please, has all been a means of trying to get some leverage.
We invited somebody out of the show to talk. Let's let them talk.
All right,
just for a second.
They're both a mixture of motive and honesty, and just like anybody, you're good and evil. You're self-preserving, ultimately. But hey, I want a friend. I want a companion. I think that's it. They're neither good nor evil, both of them.
But that speaks to a lot of the rest of the book, is like you've got these people who swear to a solitary sort of
it's a code
path.
It's a code.
But at the same time, like they're still lonely because they're human beings, right?
Yeah.
So who do you cling to? You cling to other people who are on the same path or trajectory as you are, right?
Yeah.
And I think that brings an interesting
you've got people who have technically their own code.
Right.
Because her code is different from H's code, is different from Percival's code, and we'll realize that there are other different codes moving forward.
But there's a similarity to their code, which is I do this on my own.
They have their own principles, and what we're looking at is two very independent people walking the line between humanity and these principles that kind of conflict, which is this kind of competition and how they approach it.
All right, moving on. I'm kidding.
I hate the fact that this is the chapter where you find out what the fucking end of the book is.
Well, how do you mean?
I don't get it.
Because she says, "Oh, what would you do with $240 billion?" And then he like, well, I don't know, blah blah blah. Actually, I would build a spaceship to leave fucking Earth and blah blah blah, and take my closest friends. And she's like, "Oh, well, I would like cure world hunger." And he's like, "Oh, okay."
That's not the end of the book.
You know what that fucking happens.
That's not the end of the book.
Okay, I don't care what you say, but that's foreshadowing.
It's
foreshadowing to like, hey, my love interest thinks that this is what should happen, then this is what's going to happen. That's the way it feels. Now, it's going to be awesome. Like I said, this is edit point. Like I said, it's going to be awesome.
No, this is staying in.
No, this is good.
No, it's not staying in because fuck bullshit, dick, balls, blood, whatever. It's
bullshit.
It's going to be awesome if it's nothing near that. No, it's going to be awesome if it's nothing
bullshit
near that
because
what I
tainted your track.
I love how you guys are just laughing it up.
No,
but
I'm
just saying, like, this is foreshadowing to an end, to a resolve. What you're
saying is he eats the green eggs and ham.
Well, yeah. Yeah.
I'm not saying that in like a derogatory way. I'm not trying to make fun of John.
No, he does. Because we're both fathers. We understand green eggs and ham, so John, we relate on that level. Yes.
Do you remember when you were 5 and your parental units took you to the gas station and they bought you a candy bar? And the thought comes into mind is, my parents are rich, and when I get that rich, I'm going to buy all the fucking candy bars. Do you remember that?
No.
Okay, John, then you don't relate to this situation because that's what this is. This is him at a place of immaturity.
John went to the gas station. He's like, I'm going to get a 401k. And I'm gonna put the rest in a Roth IRA.
It's just, you get two different points of view at this point. Like, what are you gonna do with endless amounts of money? With the world in disarray, what are you gonna do with $240+ billion? His point of view is, I'm gonna fucking build a ship and leave. Because this world sucks.
You understand his level of bitter.
Her point of view is, I'm going to solve the world's problems. And in most love stories, he says, at the end, he says, well, I'm going to feed the hungry, we're going to solve the world's problems.
It doesn't well, let me just give you some degree of
What's
comfort here.
What's going to happen after chapter 9? So
I can't. So let me just.
I know you
we'll laugh about this
later. Let me
Chris.
lend some comfort and reflect on this chapter. It's two people sitting talking about a lot of money, going, "What are you going to do?" I'm going to buy a bunch of fucking candy bars for myself, and the girl going, "Well, I'm going to buy candy bars for everyone else." That's it.
No, but what I'm saying is that I feel like this is a foreshadowing to the ending of the book, but it's gonna be great if it differs from this point.
One thing that I want to bring up is dying. because when he's talking to Artemis about fighting the Demi-Lich, one thing he brings up is like, if I had to fight the Demi-Lich, I would have had to. I would be in the middle of creating a new avatar, which runs completely against what we said in the last episode. Because when you fucking die, you have to completely start over.
Yeah, no, that's not against what we talked about.
Not completely against what we said.
No, that's exactly what we were saying.
Maybe you said.
Yeah, that's exactly what we were saying.
My interpretation was you start from the beginning.
Yeah, new avatar.
From
scratch.
Now, although I will say that I didn't think he was like start from scratch avatar.
Right.
I thought it was you start from level 0 avatar. Now, you start from scratch because he's talking about like, well, I have to like build my new avatar. So like I have to choose my facial features and my clothes and all that stuff. I didn't go that far. You didn't go that far either.
Do you go back to Incipio? Do you go back to the beginning of that?
It was either do you go back to the beginning of the Tomb of Horrors or do you go back to Incipio or what? That went a little further than we had discussed. So I agree with that.
But we really couldn't talk about that because that was a chapter.
I know. And again, kudos to the
and
two
again,
of you for
like it doesn't really even fully clarify here. But
chapter.
Anyways, it's an interesting point for discussion. All right, so
that would be awful. Like how would you get to a level like 56? Sure, getting that far without dying. Imagine
I know, it's
all of
epic.
the battles and everything. Yeah, I could never progress at all if I couldn't respawn.
You know,
That's insane.
I think it makes you value.
But she knows of the Tomb of Horrors for 5 weeks, and there's a ton of gold and silver.
Yeah.
And for 5 weeks, she's going through that, and she can't beat a Serac, but she can still level up in the process.
Sure, but just think of how safe you would want things to be, how little risk you would take, really.
Right.
Like I do that anyway, and I get to respawn. Like
Yeah, it's funny because like in the last chapter he talks about like what he's sacrificing, but in this chapter he actually defines what he's sacrificing in the process of the tomb of being in the Tomb of Horrors. If he were to die, he'd have to start from the beginning. He doesn't define that until this chapter. Whereas before, he's talking about, well, I would lose everything if I weren't to pass this part.
Yeah.
But now he defines, if I died, I'd start from the very beginning.
That's crazy, though. Think about that. And the Oasis, and that's like your profession and everything. You have ships, you have spacecraft, you have everything.
We touched upon this last episode, which I thought was kind of cool, was the fact that like there's life outside of this hunt.
Yeah, it's a whole infrastructure of economy.
Yeah.
Well, and if you do that, you also got to keep in mind. Imagine it's not like a game where you just die and respawn. It harkens back to the games where you had 3 chances. When you're done, you're done. You got to start the game over. It's very much like early arcade games in that sense. But you also have a value for life in the Oasis. And on top of that, the higher the level you are, the more difficult shit you can deal with.
That was the one thing that came into my mind is like recently Remy and I have been downloading these Sega classics to the Xbox One. So like we were playing like Streets of Rage and we were playing Mega Man. We've got like every Mega Man game on Xbox One now. And the thing is you can save. So like in the middle, like if you die or you get to a checkpoint, you can save and then you can go on. And if you die again, you just go back to that last save. Right. And it's funny because like people talk about how easy games are now. It's like, oh, well, you never die or like you get, as many chances as you want. And it never really gets, as hard as it was. Well, there's a lot of hand-eye coordination that went with like vintage video games.
Yeah.
It's just a different kind of experience. Now, like with modern video games, there are stick points. There are points where you'll get stuck, but you'll move your way through. But you don't have to fucking start from the beginning, which you did with Mega Man. Like you lose your lives, you're done, man. Like you fucking go all the way back to the beginning.
Game back in the day. Like I'm thinking of Pac-Man.
Mario Brothers.
Pac-Man, you had a puzzle basically that you had to complete every level.
Well, Yeah. But then again, I mean, arcade games were made for you to lose because that's how they made money.
Yeah.
Right. Right. But it still doesn't mean that RPGs are less difficult because you can save.
Right.
They've evolved, if anything. They've gotten to a point where you can do a journey, and it can last for years.
You were talking about Skyrim.
Yeah. I'm
right?
obsessed.
And I haven't played Skyrim, but I played Oblivion and Morrowind.
Sure.
But yeah, just because you can save doesn't mean that it's any easier ahead of time.
No.
It just means that, like, okay, I'm able to save right now. Now I get a number of tries from here on out to complete this mission, but that doesn't mean it's easy. It's still difficult.
Yeah.
Imagine talking Skyrim. Imagine doing Bleak Falls Borrow. The very first fucking dungeon you have to do to get that fucking claw. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes, yeah.
Like, imagine you have to do Bleak Falls Borrow
no.
the first time without dying. Otherwise, if you die, you have to go all the way back to the beginning and start from the fucking, the point where you're in the carriage again.
Not only that, but you have the massive maps. You have crazy horizons. Even when you think about it, you can just grow and just expand to a level that you could never get before.
It's so much more intricate that raises the difficulty level.
Yeah.
Well, the technology is different. Like when you're talking about your earlier gamer consoles, they didn't have onboard memory. There was no saving a point.
Yeah.
You got in, you went as far as you could go, and the game was in how far you could go.
Just how far you were talking about programming games in the trash,
or
you get
Super
as far
Mario
as you got
Brothers.
that night, and then that was it.
Yeah, or Super Mario Brothers, where you can't just start from let's say level 4-3.
Yeah, when you were on a roll, you were invested.
How far can you get from 1-1 to the end of the game? Not where you got from the previous day. It's I made it to 3-4. I'm going to save and then come back tomorrow night.
But as technology evolved, the experience could evolve. So now when you could include memory on board in the system, it was affordable. Now they could say, well, this isn't just about how far you can go. It's actually a story. It's a movie. And we are going to progress a person through so that they feel some pain when they don't succeed, but it's not so frustrating that we kick them back to the story. We want them to progress through the story. You're part of an interactive experience or a narration that somebody wants you to go through and enjoy. The ability to have that danger of failing but not being so critical that it kicks you back isn't an advancement in storytelling so much as it is an advancement in technology, and then technology opening up better storytelling.
So now imagine this. Imagine this. Imagine that it's a race to the end of Mega Man 2 or whatever retro game that you can imagine, right? And you have to start all the way back at the beginning if you lose, right? And
it's nightmarish now.
Yeah.
And there's 249 billion or whatever it is on the line, right? That can be pretty frustrating if you find out that somebody's cleared level 1 before you manage to, and you've taken 2 weeks to try and do it. That's where Artemis is in the story right now. Because right now, what she's figuring out is that in the race to the end, he is now one level ahead of her. And it's going to be pretty hard for him to drop below that.
Again, Ryan, though, I just want to point out how crazy the Oasis is if you have to respawn every time you die. Think of your perspective on that. I can't even imagine. And how expansive it is. There are planets, there are solar systems, all this stuff. You know what I mean? That is crazy. And the fact that you can't level up and save, I think that's really going to affect the way the players are so competitive.
There's real risk.
Yeah.
But as you advance...
this is what we kind of
But
talked about. I don't know if I kept it last episode, but we talked about this a little bit, there's real risk because it's not real life, but it's Second Life effects that happen. It's still, whatever happens in the Oasis affects your real life. So you're somewhat cautious in the Oasis.
Yeah.
God,
so your life in the Oasis has meaning.
The finances in the Oasis is a more stable economy than anywhere else in the world, as stated earlier. So the fact that you die and lose everything is a huge risk. But the upside is that as you gain experience and gold and your levels increase,
you become more viable.
You become more powerful and more capable of taking on greater risk. And it's not like being a regular human where I can go up to the most powerful person, still take a measly 22 and kill them. Yeah. Not like that. Mm-hmm. So what I think is key here and to reflect back on is we have now an appreciation that there is a real risk of a character dying and losing everything.
No, to be clear, I was using that as a segue point into the next part.
No. But it's great that he references that.
And she just about killed him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She made a concerted effort to end his life.
Aside from him losing the copper key, if it was not a non-PvP zone, he would be done for.
Not cool.
Right.
No muy frio.
which also brings up, the fact that it could be anybody. It could be a level 1 that finds the key. He was level 3 when he found the key.
Right.
Give or take.
Moving on. If we can.
I'm going to try.
Anything else we want to restate before we move
on?
Why? No, don't ask. Don't ask.
All right.
What are you doing?
Artemis, if you can imagine, is dealing with the fact, like imagine you've been playing for 2 weeks on this one fucking objective.
5
weeks. Sorry. Yeah, you're right. 5 weeks on one objective. Okay? And then some fucking creep off the street rolls in. And then you find out this motherfucker has actually beaten it in one try.
She is force cursing.
Totally incensed by this.
Right.
Cannot stand it. And I can't blame her. I'd be pissed too.
Yeah.
That's a rage quit moment, folks.
Mm-hmm. Level 10, no less.
No shit.
That's the great thing about...
It's a geek off the street, man.
We're 9 chapters in, and it's like... At this point, she encounters somebody that beats it in one try.
He's like the Eminem of the Oasis.
It's a huge moment.
He's coming off an 8 Mile fucking nails
who
tracks.
The fuck are you to know how to beat this guy in one try?
So Halliday made it that way. You know what I mean? He wanted even a level 10 who didn't have any money or coins or anything could do research and progress.
Right. It doesn't matter what level you are in the Oasis itself. In order to progress through the hunt in the Oasis. But it's still he's a level 3 going through this and she's a level 52. That's just a huge gap. And he can beat it in one try.
Well, she's obviously spent a lot of time doing something other than studying.
No.
You know what? I think this harkens back to the Latin class. Why did that
automatically make me feel uncomfortable the way you said it?
Yeah. I mean, I'm still trying to.
It's just the way you said it.
Through the chapter.
It's the implication, man.
I'm still trying to go through the chapter, man.
I meant she's getting levels.
Sexual.
She's leveling up.
No,
she's playing the game and not studying.
It's the way you said it.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna rewrite. I'm gonna just. All right, never mind.
Rewrite it. Just say it.
I'll fucking edit that. Just shut up. Shut it.
It's what she was doing instead of sex. It puts the lotion on its skin.
Yeah.
Damn it. No, Ryan, you were right in the Latin learning bit, which was that the Latin part was like that deepest crevice that you had to go to the place that no one liked.
Come on, Chris.
Oh man, I wasn't even thinking about crevice.
Fuck.
I'm sorry, Chris. I'm sorry.
But thank you for
That's why I'm on this podcast.
So, Chris, you were talking about crevices and what people do
so
instead
you're
of
talking
studying?
about axe wounds, right?
Yes,
No.
right. That there is no level of research that you can neglect and expect to get the key. And she even comes out and says, I hate that fucking game. Why would it even be in here? It's just ridiculous. Obviously, she's level 50-something, 52.
52.
She's been playing in the Oasis and leveling up. He's been spending all that time studying. He's focused on the deepest, darkest nooks and crannies.
Is there a point when she asks, like, hey, let's confront this together? Do you think, like, if they combined forces, they would take care of this? They would take care of this in no time whatsoever.
No.
Because I mean, not knowing past this chapter, I thought, like,
Audrey and I talked about this earlier.
Okay.
Today.
Remind me.
And it does go into the rest of the book. You know what I'm talking about, Audrey?
Remind me.
Well, I can't really fully, but later points in the book between Artemis and Parzival, this is a really good point. If they were to join forces, how quickly would that be resolved versus if they were to act independently?
Yes.
And what they would do instead.
It's weird because Artemis seems like she wants to kind of join forces. Where he's like, oh, no. You're like, I'll let you do your own thing. I'll come back tomorrow, even though I'm not going to come back tomorrow because I'm going to Middleton. I'll let you do your thing. I'm going to do my thing. But it's nice to meet you.
It's also a point of motivation. You know what I mean? Like, would they stay, and you might have to cut part of this, but would they stay as motivated if they joined forces and were, in love?
I think they would. Because as far as they know, they're the only two that have made it this far in the hunt, which has taken 5 years to get to.
Right.
And they know that there's progress to be made, so they know it's real. So I think that the hunt itself means something, and that the relationship between the two wouldn't interfere with the goal.
I think the initial relationship flirty part is manipulative, and then once the shit comes down, the relationship gets real, which is now there's real respect between the two. Mm-hmm. And that's summed up because in the end of the chapter when he says, hey, play the other side of the joystick. Yeah. He's not doing it because she manipulated him. He's doing it because he's now sincerely interested, and she's taking that up and going, why did you give me that hint? She didn't force him.
Because anybody in the fucking world would choose the left joystick.
Well,
sorry, still believe it.
But just honestly, like,
it's player
at
one.
The end
for
of
fuck's
this
sake.
chapter,
you always take the left if you can.
Honestly, Artemis plays a bigger role in this book. But by the end of this chapter, I don't think it's not necessary for her to play a bigger role in this book. I feel like you get a good perspective on both of the characters.
It's an introduction.
So whether or not you see Artemis in this chapter, in chapter 10 and beyond, doesn't matter, because you see who she is in this chapter.
So John, I'm just wondering, since you haven't read ahead, what do you think about her? Do you like her? That yes or no? Do you actually like
Good
Artemis,
question.
or what are your impressions of her? That's just the first impressions that Wade is going through right now.
I like her, and I think in this chapter you can see her frustration, but not with Wade, but frustration in general.
As a reader, though,
yeah,
do you like her?
As a man,
don't make this uncomfortable, Chris. Her. God damn it! Why do you always have to do that?
You don't have. No,
fine, my bad, John. As a woman,
okay.
So you like her
as a man?
Ryan, go ahead.
As a lady.
As a lady.
I've seen her as the love interest from the very beginning of this book. So whether that interest develops into something more than just him being smitten with her or not. She's an interest, and that might perpetuate him into further stages of the hunt itself.
But so you're saying she might motivate him a little bit.
Right. I don't know if her role is to be like the, hey, we're gonna end up together and married, as much as we're gonna feed each other the motivation to end this quest by the end of the book.
Okay.
So do you like her or not?
I do like her. She seems more genuine than he does because he's trying to lie. She seems more forthcoming of actual detail and truths than he is until the end of the book, when she's like, whoa, I just pulled up the page, you're on the fucking scoreboard, piece of shit. Like, you've been lying to me this entire time, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Like, she seems more forthcoming about details than he has, if that makes sense.
No, that's a good take. Chris, you got anything to add before we go?
It's weird because there are some chapters when we talk and my mind changes on some shit. And this is one of those chapters where, after having talked to you guys and having looked at it, I felt like the game was being played up until she saw the scoreboard. That, you know, she was, if she didn't kill him, she was trying to psychologically play him to get his assistance, or to get him to crack, or to get him to give her some information, to give her something to the next step. And when she looked at the scoreboard, that's when all the facades dropped. Mm-hmm. There were no more lies on her side or his. And then you saw them really emotionally reacting with each other and being sincere. She was being frustrated. He was apologizing for being a dick. And at that point, now that they're being real, they're friendly competitors, but in being so, they're recognizing that they are strong competitors, which is the reason why she threw that wall in front of him and said, you can start running, but I'm going to block you, and you're going to have a hard time getting out. I'm going to be high on your tail soon after.
No,
so you better start running.
It's crazy how they feel each other out through this entire chapter.
But I did not feel that way when I first read this chapter.
No,
I thought they were sincerely
but
flirting.
Back on it, you understand how they're feeling each other out.
Audrey, am I seeing too much into this, or what's your perspective as to what you think is how she's playing this?
Oh God, I feel the same way. Like, when I first read this, it was just like a tete-a-tete, like flirting, surface level. I was in such a rush, caught up in the puzzle myself to get to the next point, that I took this chapter for granted. So I actually really appreciate that you all invited me on this one, because I really feel like I understand them a whole lot more just because we've been able to dig into them a bit more. But I'm just like you. I mean, they both have motives. I just think they're regular people. They're self-preserving, and but they like each other and could see a potential to team up. Maybe they didn't have mutual respect for one another, but now they do at the end of the chapter. So let's see where the next chapter takes them.
I honestly, from the very beginning of reading this book, and the first time that I read through this, like, I get the feeling there's a little bit of cat and mouse going on, but I honestly get the feeling that they're after the same thing. And, like, whether that goes, like, forthrightly, like, smacked in your face, like, like, they're both after, like, solving world hunger is a fucking pie in the sky thing. Flying a spaceship up to the fucking, to orbit with all of your favorite things is pie in the sky. I think that the truth always lies in the middle. And I think if you were to find the middle ground between the two of them, they're both after the same kind of thing. And that's just, like, peace of mind, which is what everybody's after in a fucking post-apocalyptic, sort of universe that this is written in. I mean, they're both after, whether that's, whether you find solace in providing a solution for the masses, providing a solution for yourself, one way or another, I feel like they're after the same thing, because otherwise there's nothing to fucking fight for. However you perceive the relationship between Parzival and Artemis, it is what it is. To repeat myself from the previous episode.
It is what it is.
I think that's the theme this podcast.
Yeah. So, again, join us on July 28th if you can in Knoxville. Fuck it. We're doing it live. As Bill O'Reilly would say.
However it works.
Yeah.
We're doing it live. If you can't
join us on the live stream, more details to come. This has been Chapter 9 of Get to the Good Part. Well, Chapter 9 of Ready Player One. This is Get to the Good Fuck, I'm tired. All right. I'm Ryan.
I am John.
And this is Chris.
And Audrey.
And thank you for joining us again this week. So long.
Peace.
Can you make me a ham sandwich?
Babe,
make that sandwich?
Ham and mayo. Are you fucking kidding me? First of all, there's no chance I would have married anybody like that. And second of all, if I ever said that to Jamie, she would fucking gut me. Like
I imagine like a mayonnaise jar just hitting you in the skull.
Yeah, enjoy your sandwich.
And she goes, "Oh God, we gotta put it back in. Let the brain matter.
Let me
gotta
gather this all together.
A little bit of mayonnaise.
Little mayonnaise.
Keep it all in place.
That'll keep it all
Your daddy's
pasted
pretty
together.
little baby.
You got
no reason to call 911.
Oh,
Ryan's doing okay.
Where's your husband? He's in the closet doing a podcast.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna go back to watching HGTV.
Ryan's in the hospital. I'm Chris and I'm John.
Why is he wearing sunglasses and a mustache? Don't worry about it.